We should talk about selling out. If you can be deemed a sellout in this day and age, it's probably not to a label. It's probably to a brand. I've been making my living for almost a decade, licensing my music for commercials, and well, it is complicated. Let's talk about it. The Black Eyed Peas are a modern example of a very famous band that is widely accepted to have sold out. Their early music was provocative and cutting edge. More recently, the music they've been coming out with is not provocative and it's not cutting edge. It does get stuck in your head and it does demonstrate my point very well. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday. I'm not judging the Black Eyed Peas. I don't want to judge the Black Eyed Peas. will.i.am is unapologetically a very good businessman. He defends himself very well and he's been very successful. I just think that they're a good example of kind of historically what we think of as a sellout. So Casey Neistat recently talked about this. I was kind of bummed when I saw that because I was literally scripting out this video and I almost didn't post it, but then I thought, whatever, I'm going to do it anyway. Everyone can't live in the man's shadow. So a summary of what Casey said was basically there's reality and there's dreams, and someone who's taken those two things and fused them together into the perfect life has had to work so hard and paid such a high price for it that anyone who's judging them from down below is basically just completely missing the point. I agree with that, but I want to dig a little deeper into the subtext of that conversation, specifically on a very practical level, what it means today to be a young person in a world where there's an insane amount of content being made for the internet. Brands are spending billions and billions of dollars creating this content, and people in my generation are getting hired to make that content. Very brief historical recap of the last 50 years. So for most of the 20th century, there was a very small amount of content being made in a very select number of sectors like print and TV and film and albums being put out on vinyl and all that stuff. And as that kind of went down, the internet was taking over. So these big budget, very exclusive sectors have descended. And as the internet's come in, more and more and more and more and more content is being made. And people with all different sort of motives, brands or nonprofits, all need content. Lots of young people are finding careers in creative fields that they never could have imagined before. This is the amazing thing about the time we live in. So really, this question of selling out, I think that's just so sensationalized. I think it's really simple. Are you comfortable with taking your art, the special thing that you have that's sacred to you, and sort of tweaking it and working it and molding it and shaping it into something that is useful to someone who has money? If you like that process of being pushed into really uncomfortable spaces and it excites you, then maybe this selling out thing isn't so bad for you. I think that being an amateur actually can be super amazing. It means you can escape to your craft instead of having to slave over it to make money. It means you can affect your community and create really avant-garde, really provocative, really culturally meaningful stuff without worrying at all about the bottom line. I mean, that's just an incredibly healthy, positive place to be in for certain people. If that's something that's deep inside of you, you want to make really deeply meaningful art that's very sacred to you, and you choose to get into advertising or figuring out how to make money at your art, those two things are always at tension with one another for me. All right, so taking all of that into consideration, here's a few tips. Number one, as long as you're not willing to pay the price, it's probably not going to happen. The chances are, if you're not willing to work hard enough, it could be because you're tricking yourself into thinking that you want something you don't want, or you're afraid of failing, or you don't believe you're good enough, but it's all this deep stuff that's hiding inside you need to wrestle with. If you're really excited about something, there should be a ton of energy inside of you to do it. Number two, be pragmatic. This is huge. Actually, I stole this one from Andrew Huang because I thought he summed it up so well. You need to think about who you're after. You need to think about where they live. You need to think about what websites they visit, what kind of content they consume. You need to figure out how they need you to present yourselves to them so that their minds will be blown. When I started trying to get jobs composing, man, I would just reverse engineer everything I could. It was in the day of like Flash video games, before iPhones and everything, before you could play games on your phone, like people played them in browsers. And so I would go to these independent aggregators and find the independent game studios that were usually like 1 to 5 man shops, and I would hunt them down and beg them to let me write music for them for free. I've heard of people going on Kickstarter and emailing people doing film Kickstarters and asking them if they could score their films for free. You're not supposed to do that, but it works. There's so many weird ways that you can like stand out. Number 3, chill out. This is like impossible. Like the only way you can really chill out is once you begin to feel somewhat normalized in a new environment. But in the meantime, when you're terrified and when you want to try to strong arm somebody or manipulate somebody into liking you or talking to you, chill out. People want to talk to nice, normal, humble people. Oh, yeah. One more. I guess this is number. Your genius is going to be reflected in how you perceive the world, how your brain is wired. Like, if somebody else is doing something that you think is cool and you think you need to be able to do, but it doesn't align with your core aptitudes and your core, like, brilliance, whatever your X factor is, then you shouldn't try to do it. You should focus on you.